My sister faked a pregnancy to steal my husband. She didn't know I owned everything. Hello. I'm 35 years old, and I live alone in a modest home in the Colorado Springs suburbs. My name is Olivia. Being the manager of an interior design business is a demanding but secure career that allows me to live a life free from distractions. Even though I'm not the kind to trust people readily, I've always done my best to maintain the tenuous ties I have with my family. Sophie, who is 29 years old, my younger sister, gave me a late-night call a few months ago. She seemed to have just finished sobbing since her voice was weak and shaking. She recounted being let off after a sudden closure of her firm and a subsequent diagnosis of West Nile virus. It broke my heart. Despite our lack of intimacy, I couldn't turn a blind eye to her struggles. They were unable to provide the care she needed since our parents retired and relocated to Florida many years ago. If she had any friends at all, they were either far away or dealing with their own problems. I decided to let Sophie move in with me till she got well and worked out what to do next after talking to our parents on the phone. She was so weak when she came that I almost couldn't identify her. She had a lifeless complexion, hazel eyes, and a clumsy gait that seemed to be triggered by the least wind. So that she might get some rest, I cleared out the guest bedroom and reconfigured the living room. I took care of her daily meals, picked up her prescriptions, and transported her to her doctor appointments. In order to be at her side more often, I even made arrangements to work remotely. My silence was deafening. As a big sister, it was the right thing to do. One night, when I placed a platter of food on the nightstand, Sophie murmured, "Thank you for doing all this," her eyes brimming with gratitude. "Your schedule is hectic, and I understand that. There are no adequate words to express my gratitude." I forced a grin, trying to hide my obvious weariness. Members of the same family provide assistance to one another. No need to express your gratitude. I thought I was doing morally when I did it. I had always been a bit of a stickler for the idea that there would be a positive feedback loop when you perform good deeds. The greatest trap of my life has turned out to be compassion, which I never saw coming. Sophie remained under my care for about 2 months. Health returned to her gradually. She was able to go about, make basic meals, and even laugh sometimes. It seemed like things were looking up for a while, but there were instances when I felt weird. Her perceptiveness as she surveyed the home. Also, she seemed to be trying to figure out how much some of my possessions were worth by asking me about them. "I bet this mansion was expensive." While I was brewing coffee one morning, she inquired in a casual tone, attributing her words to idle chatter. I couldn't help but chuckle. "It's not bad. It wasn't easy, but I worked hard for it. The payments are due every month." Her look slipped my mind at that moment, a brief glance filled with jealousy and logic. It was there, but I ignored it. Simply put, she was my sister, the one that I had absorbed, the one with whom I had spent many restless nights as her fever raged. I had no idea that the home I welcomed her into would turn out to be the setting where my entire essence started to crumble, when I thought my family would never do anything bad to me. I ushered in the worst days of my life. What seemed like a typical Friday afternoon 3 months after Sophie moved in turned out to be the event that destroyed any remaining faith in her. Sophie was waiting for me in the living room when I arrived home from work, still dressed for the office. She looked like something extraordinary was about to happen in the flowery dress I had loaned her before, with her hair pulled back in a tidy bun and a hint of subtle makeup. Perched on the sofa next to her, my husband Ryan seemed as if he had just been sent terrible news. He was as pale as a ghost. I was shivering the whole time. "Does anything happen with a racing heart?" I inquired. After giving Ryan a quick look, Sophie shifted her dramatic gaze to me. "Sit down. I think you're right. My bad." I had a feeling that I would need every ounce of effort to remain standing in the face of what was ahead. Despite her nervous voice, She started to speak, since she had something essential to say, specifically, intentionally. Yes, this is my first pregnancy. Suddenly I blinked. Just a moment to sign up. Is a pregnancy imminent? No one's child. She looked across at Ryan. I met her eyes and saw that he stopped dodging hers. He only lowered his head and let out a sigh. He remained silent. I can hear nothing except the wall clock ticking. My heart froze as I stood there. I felt like a needle was stuck in my side with every word Sophie spoke. I had given my spouse my whole confidence, nourished and cared for her, and now they were betraying me. Below my eaves. Hey, it's okay to feel upset, Sophie assured. What has been done is done, however. This kid is currently inside of me. I refuse to live here with the guilt of a criminal. Yes, it would be best if you left so that Ryan and I could establish a new family. It made me chuckle, not because it made anybody laugh, but because the sheer stupidity of it all defied reason. Would you want to return coldly? I inquired. Are you suggesting that I give up my independence so that you and my spouse may have a family I just considered? She slipped a little. You would understand. We're quite close. Your niece or nephew is this little one. It's inappropriate to refer to me as your sister. Aliasing her, my voice becomes frigid. Someone betrayed you. And now you have that kid. As you subsisted on my medication, food, and shelter. Ryan remained silent. Looking across at him, I complied. Are you completely speechless? It never occurred to me that Sophie would be that blunt with you. So I pushed, and you knew it was a rare occurrence. I was hoping we could keep it under wraps, not in plain sight. A dry chuckle escaped me. You really believed I'd never find out that you were living two lives in this house? No, I kept my tears bottled inside. After Faith was reduced to ash, I had no more tears. After making my way upstairs, I gathered a little bag, the deed to my home, and all of my bank cards. Afterwards, I descended and set each one on the table. I'm not going anywhere, I said while staring Sophie down. My name is on this property. I am the one who paid for every single chair and block. Everyone is free to leave if they feel uneasy. Sophie gave me that look of disbelief as she stared at me. However, though, this is my first pregnancy, I warned him not to hide his selfishness behind the infant. Finding a home of your own should be a no-brainer for someone with the courage to sleep with my spouse. With his head down and his eyes closed in despair, remained mute. Shouting or breaking things wasn't necessary. No shout could have drowned out my quiet. They are unforgivable in my book, I knew. Right then, the door had shut permanently. But the worst thing is, whoever phoned me before was the one who closed it. Female relative with her face pale. Sophie remained still, as if waiting for a decision. Ryan sat there. As my pulse raced, I braced myself by crossing my arms, whereas my voice, it remained unmoved. It was exacting and pointed. With my gaze locked on Ryan, I announced that I would be formally divorcing on Monday. Tonight is a good time for you to pack. Sophie, too. I looked over at her. This is not the place for you anymore. Oh, you, this is too much for you. Sophie hesitantly spoke. Because of this, I am stuck here. This is my first pregnancy. Are you serious about evicting me from this place? An icy chuckle escaped my lips. Quite amusing. Did that occur to you when you plotted to expel me from my house and kidnap my husband? With bewildered eyes, Ryan glanced up ever so slightly. Hello, Olivia. My mistake is obvious. No rationale has been forthcoming. What transpired between Sophie and myself, however, was not premeditated. I mean, it simply was twisted, curled up. I almost laughed as I repeated, it's not a slip in the shower, it's treachery. I proceeded to get the property records from the little safe located in the room's far corner. In my name alone, Each and every one I purchased the home before to our marriage. With each one I placed on the table, as if to spell out an indisputable reality they could no longer refuse to acknowledge. "Hello, Sophie." "Slowly," I replied. "You mistakenly believed that Ryan and I shared ownership of this property. Wasn't that so?" With anxiety and perplexion reflected in her eyes, she gave a nod. "I'm sorry about that. You need to have verified ownership before attempting to seize something that was never rightfully yours. Nothing here belongs to Ryan, missing a savings account, a title, and any stake." As I looked across to Ryan, I could see the look of humiliation and despair on his face. It was as if someone had slammed a pail of freezing water over Sophie. Her wide eyes shifted to meet his. "I was told by you. You oversaw the budget. I swear this whole place was a shrine to you." A sigh escaped Ryan's lips. "Yes, my feelings of pitiful led me to say such. Who or what did you believe I was?" A well-known writer. After 3 years of working on the same manuscript, I finally broke down. "Every single item you've seen up until now is all that belonged to Olivia," as if she had just been stabbed. Sophie retreated, but this time it was done by someone she had trusted before. "You misled me." I advanced slightly, so that they could both hear me loud and clear. "After you deceived me. What about fair trade?" I let them remain there, embarrassment hanging over them. Then I finally spoke my mind, expressing my thoughts, since the news broke. "You two must leave this residence immediately and get all of your belongings. I will notify the authorities if that does not happen." Stumbling upstairs to begin packing, Ryan softly nodded. Sophie stood still, her expression changing from fury to fear, and then she fell to her knees, crying uncontrollably. "My name is Olivia." "Excuse me, my thoughts have been completely clouded. I considered." "You considered what?" "That you could ruin a marriage and then act as if nothing had transpired." My sister was slumped on the floor, and I glanced down at her. "No need for an apology from you. Please leave." I refused to let myself be vulnerable, so I turned away. It is impossible to mend a sisterhood that has been strained to its limit. They vanished an hour after that. Ryan remained silent. Sophie continued to weep, but this time she kept quiet. Perhaps because she realized she had lost all control of the situation. Behind them, I closed the door. There was an unusual stillness in the home for the first time in what seemed like weeks. Leaning against the door, I stood there for a minute, breathing silently. I had been divorced. My loved ones had died. I hadn't become someone I wasn't. After the driveway's final tire noise faded, I remained there for an unknown amount of time. It was pitch black. An unearthly silence descended upon the home. Sophie will no longer have to drag her feet down the corridor. No more Ryan's insincere attempts to seem like he's working on a novel. A frigid home, an empty house, and only me. No, I kept my tears bottled inside. Even my anger had subsided. It seemed as if my whole being had been scorched. I went room to room, turning on the lights and opening windows to let in the cool night air. A dense smoke filled the air, as if the home had just been burned to the ground, devoid of flames, only debris. So I got to work cleaning. It was all about Sophie, her medicine luggage, pillows, and a jumble of garments from the closet. I recorded every detail. No categorization, no reservations. I skipped the folding. With the intention of removing her from my life, I crammed all of her belongings into her bag. Regarding Ryan, there are many unread philosophy books, incomplete manuscripts, and the bath towel I got him for our second anniversary. They were thrown into a sack, which I then hurled at the front door. The doorbell rang as I hauled the last suitcase into the foyer. I recognized the person, with her cheeks stained with tears and her eyes a fiery crimson. Sophie stood there. She seemed to be attempting to elicit pity as she sported the hoodie that I had previously loaned her, with her arms wrapped about her tummy. "Please, Olivia, just give me one night. Right now, I am completely lost. I sincerely apologize." I met their intense gaze head on. It was those same eyes that finally pushed me over the edge when she was a small girl and had a broken arm from a bike mishap. The eyes belonged to a sister in need, but not this time. They belonged to someone who had betrayed trust and was now attempting to make amends with insincere tears. "Keep your palm firmly planted on the door," I proclaimed. "It is forbidden for you to return here, neither now nor ever. Yet I am alone. You were with someone, my spouse, and you decided to use him as a tool to betray me. See to each other's needs immediately." Sophie sobbed as she fell into the chilly porch floor. "My thoughts have been completely clouded. It was my fault. Well, I certainly did. I did not move." "Stop wasting time, Sophie. You will no longer be a part of my life as of today." Without saying a word more, I shut the door. When the lock clicked into place, it sounded like the end. I took the divorce paperwork to my attorney's office first thing the next morning. Every detail had been meticulously planned. Everything was recorded and owned by me, so Ryan couldn't possibly lay claim to any of the assets. I preferred not to prolong the matter. Finally, I wanted it to end. My phone rang just as I was about to sign the last paper. Mommy was the one on the other end. After staring at the screen for what seemed like an eternity, I finally broke the quiet. When I was ready, I would explain. The criticism and justifications came too soon for me. The lawyer phoned around 3 o'clock in the afternoon to verify the filing of the divorce papers. In the near future, Ryan will get a summons from the court. A peculiar serenity enveloped me as I ended the call. It was a sad situation, but I felt tidy up. I had a cup of mint tea and sat on the balcony by myself that night, staring at the stars. The chilly breeze brushed over my hair as it rustled the leaves, evoking a gentle murmur from bygone days of tranquility. The route ahead would be challenging. I knew that. Relatives would harass me, spread stories, and maybe even be angry with me. I was certain, nevertheless, that I had acted morally. I had made my own decision. Ultimately, no one would defend me until I did. My phone started ringing again only 3 days after I filed for a divorce. On this occasion, I failed to swiftly push the quiet button. Just as I was about to end the call, the screen flashed with my mom's name. I said, "Hi, Mom," after a little pause. "At long last, you're taking up." Her tone was abrupt and unfriendly. "It was Sophie who told me that you evicted Olivia from your home during the time of her pregnancy." Do you mean that my voice remained level as I shut my eyes? Yet in light of her actions, I could not let her to remain. "In your opinion, was that the correct thing to do?" Out of nowhere, she became furious. "Sophie, who is expecting Ryan's kid, is homeless and unemployed. What gives you the impression that this will make you strong?" Simply said, "It makes you seem more harsh to me." I remained silent for a little moment. "Did you hear about her affair with my husband?" She made a mistake. "That is unacceptable to me. Ryan, on the other hand, is seasoned older and more adept at manipulating situations. In my opinion, if Sophie erred, it was because someone else led her into it. My ears were sorely deceived." Played with, "Are you referring to an almost 30-year-old lady who was supporting herself off of her sister and then stole my husband while I was at work? Do you consider that to be manipulated?" "Olivia, you are being really critical." Mom lost her cool. "No family would behave in such a way." "We don't kick someone out after they fall. They are lifted up by our extended hand." "Okay, Mom, I contacted you already." I drew a long breath. Entering my house, I welcomed Sophie. Every meal and medication were taken care of by me, and the way she thanked me was the most egregious act of treachery you can imagine. My mom's voice became softer after a little period of quiet on the other end. "Your sister, she is still. Where does that infant stand? There's blood. A family affair. Please don't be so cold-hearted." It made me shut my eyes. I was transported to my youth for an instant. Whenever someone else was supposed to be stronger, it was always me to cave to my smaller, frailer sister, even if it was unfair. Once again, the same plot was unfolding. The cost, however, was not a cake or a toy this time. All of my marriage's worth and honor were at stake. "Apologies, Mom," I said, in an unusually subdued tone. "I will not back down this time, however. No more." Just as if she couldn't believe I'd said it, my mom fell into a peculiar silence. With a last line that was as heavy as stone, she spoke them. "You're not the same. I no longer recognize you as my daughter." Without saying anything, I hung up the phone. Perhaps she was spot on. I had transformed. However, it was not my intention so that I wouldn't be trampled again. They made me do it. Dad texted me first thing in the morning the next day, direct and concise. "Your mom is furious. You should give this some serious consideration. If at all possible, people in a family shouldn't abandon one another because of an error." I chose not to answer. I lacked the stamina to defend myself to those who refused to consider other perspectives. They hadn't resided at the residence. They did not return home in the middle of the night to see Sophie and Ryan glued to a movie laughing, as if I didn't exist. They were not the ones who in the safety of their own home trusted, and were then deceived. I requested that my lawyer speed up the divorce process by email by the afternoon. Any other necessary paperwork, statements, etc. are attached. I was hoping this would be over with shortly. Put an end to procrastination. No one has another opportunity to drag me back into that mayhem. The next night, while I was preparing for bed and turning out the lights, the doorbell rang once again. Through the curtain, I peered. My mom stood there, holding her handbag, securely in a thin coat. In contrast to her attitude on the phone, her expression when she glanced up at the window was calm and collected. It was very unique. I was unable to identify it. The door remained closed. I remained still, observing in silence before circling back to go. I couldn't continue loving her without protection, not because my love for her was lacking. I thought things had calmed down a week after the stressful phone talk with my mom. In an effort to divert my thoughts from the suffering my family had inflicted, I returned to my job and concentrated on the tasks I had left incomplete. Yet the calm was brief, lasting only 3 days. On Monday morning when I entered the office, Sam, my assistant, came running up to me, his expression filled with anxiety. "Look, Olivia, an elderly lady, is there, acting as if it were an important matter. She has been occupying the lobby since 8 a.m. claiming to be your mother." I was so exhausted that I couldn't help but let out a deep breath. I agreed and instructed Sam to take her to a private conference room, since I didn't want anything to happen at work. Upon the door closing, she retrieved an envelope from her handbag and delicately placed it on top of the table. Results from the ultrasound. Sophie miscarried. According to the doctor, it was caused by stress. I felt numb and silent as I gazed at the paper. Her fury was evident in her whispered words as she shook her head in disapproval. "Your sister was coerced into this by you. Do older sisters act in such a way?" Meeting her gaze, I raised my head to stare at her. Sophie was not compelled to do anything by me. She decided for herself, and I drew a deep breath in regards to the miscarriage. My apologies, but I can't take the heat for the feelings or choices of another person. A homeless, pregnant lady who has been forcibly removed from her home, has nowhere to turn for help. Is it really your belief that it would have no psychological impact on her? Do you still believe you have the last say, slap after slap, word after word? Reason being, it struck me not because I was guilty. In reality, my loved ones never supported me. You should have taken Sophie in, Mom, then why not? Not to mention all of the concerned relatives. She'll have everyone's support, won't they? There was silence. My voice was no longer gentle as I continued. Simply said, "You all pass judgment easily. But when it comes to providing genuine assistance, no one volunteers. Please don't make me feel bad about things that weren't my fault." Angry crimson eyes betrayed my mother's sudden rise to her feet. "Olivia, you're acting quite distant now. You seem to be emotionally weak." "No, Mom," I said with conviction. "It's a new skill for me to guard my emotions. After the people I cared about the most broke it, rest is silence on her part. Leaving the ultrasound paper on the table, she just walked out. At her back, the door banged shut with a gentle but heavy weight. I received a message from a relative that afternoon, my mother's cousin, Aunt Evelyn. A person I hardly saw, no need to interrupt, but it seems like every member of the family is chatting. "Olivia, everyone thinks you've crossed a line." Sophie shattered her heart. "Please, think again." I felt cold when I grasped the phone. The whole family. They weren't even in the area. Everyone else missed it. But they read it like a cheap fiction and had no trouble determining who was right and who was wrong. It was a one-sentence response from me. "Because no one has given Sophie a place to stay. Even though everyone seems to care about her, nobody got back to me." My dearest buddy from college, Jenna, called me again that evening. She said with a trembling voice, "Does anything happen? Someone in your family told me. Supposedly, Sophie was forced out of the house when she was pregnant, and now I've severed ties with her. Sophie turned me in where I am at home, along with my own spouse. No response from the other side. It was all her fault." I proceeded to explain that all I'm doing is sweeping up the debris. No one is forcing me to take a back seat while they enjoy a life they didn't earn. A soft breath escaped Jenna's lips. "Okay, I see now. Excuse me, but I had to ask. It's all right." I reassured her softly. "I just do not want for anybody else to misrepresent my narrative any longer." In the end, I wrote a lengthy letter that I intended to keep to myself rather than send to anybody. In it, I mapped out the whole process, direct and unfiltered. No changes. I aspired to portray reality on tape. I say this not to defend anything, but merely to keep myself aware. The most self-loving thing you can do for yourself is to stand firm when you need to. I was even more certain of one thing as I folded the letter and stashed it away in a drawer. It wasn't necessary for everyone to comprehend my feelings. All I needed to do was quit letting myself down. An unexpected note arrived in my inbox from Ryan. 3 weeks subsequent to my divorce petition, he chose not to make a call, kept silent. A single line, "Something has to be spoken to you." That's crucial. I almost erased it. However, a part of me was hesitant. My feelings for him had completely faded. Apathy has replaced wrath for a long time. However, I remained curious. My drive for complete resolution overrode whatever concern I may have had. I just told them to say it. The next thing I knew, my phone started ringing. Ryan was the one who had called, like I was taking a business call. I picked up the phone and remained composed. "I'm not phoning to provide reasons or apologize," he said immediately. "I only want you to be aware of the reality. It was never Sophie's intention to get pregnant. I straightened my back. Please repeat yourself. From the beginning, I had my suspicions. He sounded exhausted. She informed me that she was expecting a child, but she refused to take me to the doctor with her. I offered to drive her to an ultrasound, asked her several then more, and even provided her the number of a nearby clinic. But she never did that. Remaining silent was my choice. All the shattered parts started to fall into place in my mind. Ryan persisted as she just reiterated that the doctor had instructed her to be still and not to exert herself too hard. Subsequently, upon receiving the ultrasound paper, Sophie did not give it to you. Your mom did. Sorry, I missed the original. I lost it, she said. So the pregnancy loss was also false. With a quiet voice, I inquired, "Excuse me." I told her. There was silence, simply sobbed. However, records and paperwork were non-existent. Nothing was ever verified by a doctor. Her actions were only She said that she miscarried one day. Reclining on my seat, I relaxed. I felt no pain in my heart. It tightened differently, a more profound kind of pain. Feeling as if your own family has betrayed you deeply. I contacted you because your loved ones are accusing you. I've heard claim that Sophie's miscarriage was due to you. I wasn't going to give you that. Ryan hesitated before speaking. The time is late, I am aware. However, it is still important to tell the truth. It was now obvious. Having a child was never in her plans. I expressed my gratitude for your candor. Honest and concise, this is something I really shouldn't say, Ryan said before ending the call. But my wish is that you discover tranquility. And if you're able to, Olivia, just let it go. You must not let the events surrounding our relationship to affect the remainder of your life. It went unanswered. The call ended shortly. Now, after that, I sat still for quite some time. Gazing at the window, I took careful notes on Ryan's words the next day, after printing out our text conversation. Keep secret from all parties. For the record, in order to reassure myself that I was not insane. Alternatively, ice cold, or harsh, just like my relatives had said. I contacted my mom that afternoon. On this occasion, it was I who made contact. Could you spare a moment? Excuse me, I inquired. Could you please tell me what I am talking about? Her voice lacked warmth. Closed in. I just wanted to let you know about something. Slowly, I replied. It was never Sophie's intention to get pregnant. Nobody answered. She swallowed rather forcefully, and I could hear it. Ryan was the one who verified it. He claimed to have asked her many times, but she consistently avoided answering him. Nothing was ever validated by any documentation or medical professionals. This was all an act, rather than leave, in order to get forgiveness so she might feel supported. Can you provide evidence? So I asked my mom. She spoke more softly. Mom, I don't need evidence. Calmly, I said, I've had enough of proving myself to everyone. In order to inform you, I simply phoned. The decision to believe it or not rests with you. This discussion may conclude at this point if you choose to continue holding me responsible for something that did not exist. Mom was quiet for quite some time. Her voice was almost shaking as she continued. Hello, Olivia. I had no idea. I was really confused. It was a whisper, but I knew, which is why I have no animosity against you. However, the way everyone ignored me will always be etched in my memory, in exchange for an untruth, concealed under tears. After that, I ended the call, and I felt totally calm for the first time after all that had transpired. I've proven everything. Left with nobody to appease, I had emerged from behind them, and this time independent of everyone else. I got a confirmation email from the court early in the morning in June. Legal separation had been placed. Since Ryan didn't challenge anything, the whole event went more quickly than anticipated. Course agreement, free. Absolutely no requirements. On paper, we were now formally strangers. I couldn't even put my finger on the relief that it offered me. I took out my phone, accessed my contact list, and then carefully placed the printed court order away with my personal documents. My mother, not allowed. Hey, Papa, not allowed. Hello, Sophie, not allowed. For every unanswered call, unread message, and venomous allegation, I discarded it everything, not because I hated them, but because I got it now. To forgive is not to retain a person in one's life. I rewarded myself with a hearty meal that night. Present at the table is no one. But I had tranquility for the first period in months. Sitting at the window, I poured myself a glass of red wine, put on an old playlist with some gentle jazz, and watched the sun set over the garden. There was treachery, fighting, and crying that took place in this house, which had formerly been a home, but I was deciding to take it back for myself this time. In a nutshell, I began with little adjustments, including rearranging the couch and drapes, and removing the previous wedding picture to replacing it with an empty frame. Empty pages are the starting point of every new chapter. In addition to ordering some houseplants, I changed the linens and painted the living room a pale sage green. A new cadence gradually emerged in daily life, as if the act of breathing itself contributed to my recovery. My morning coffee was always for one person, not two. Without the distraction of noisy television programs in the living room, I am able to read a few chapters of a book every night once again. I was beginning to pay attention to my inner voice. It had been a very long time since I had done anything like that. At a book fair, I reconnected with Lily, a friend from college. Tightly, we embraced. Her gentle eyes met mine as she gazed at me. "How are you doing?" Lily touched my shoulder tenderly and asked, "So did I. I am recovering." Gradually but solidly nodding, she gave the signal. "You will overcome it. I had no doubt. You're more capable than you give yourself credit for." We spent hours chatting at a local cafe. There was no wallowing in the past. We looked forward with optimism. I was too preoccupied with tending to other people's needs to give any thought to the plans, ideas, or even the aspirations I had tucked away. Someone who was unworthy of it. Upon returning home that night, I retrieved my laptop and combed through old emails in search of a rescheduled trip to Charleston, a seaside city that had long been on my bucket list. It was only 2 years ago that I canceled the vacation due to Ryan's dislike of the sun. At this point, nobody could stop me. It was rescheduled by me, first of all. Next week, on Friday, the plane was supposed to take off. Something in my chest drew up. As I looked at the confirmation on my computer, the liberation felt like a bolt from an unseen shackle that had ensnared me for all these years. Even today, I can feel my body mending in places. It takes more than a summer for emotional scars to heal. But this too I know with absolute certainty. I've finally broken free from the vicious cycle of mindless giving. Even my own family won't be able to coerce me into becoming the ideal sister ever again. No longer am I concerned about Sophie's whereabouts activities, or the version of events she spins to make others feel sorry for her. I want limitations, boundaries, and tranquility in my life. And it's not selfishness that's driving me. I may still have scars, but I am no longer powerless. From now on, I don't let just anybody into my life. As a devout Christian lady, Olivia once endured the worst betrayal of her life at the hands of her own husband and sister. However, she chose not to crumble, but to distance herself, establish limits, and recover her serenity. The bravest thing someone can do, even if they are related, is to leave a poisonous relationship, as Olivia now knows.